You're watching Public Affairs. Berkowitz is my name, politics is our game. And we're going to be doing lots of politics, I think, and public policy this evening because we have as our guest Rey Lopez Calderon. He is the executive director of Common Cause Illinois. It was somewhat a dormant organization for several years before you came there. You've been there almost 2 years now, is that right?
Right.
All right. And so Ray's made a big splash in the last, what was it, last month or two? You and the lady from Sylvia Puente from the Illinois Latino Forum, is that right?
Latino Policy Forum.
Latino Policy Forum, okay. Illinois Latino Policy Forum?
It's just a Latino Policy Forum.
So you've discovered and have articulated, along with the folks at the Sun-Times, would that be fair?
That's correct.
Major conflicts that existed in the UNO organization.
That's correct.
UNO stands for United Neighborhood Organization, is that
That's
right? Okay. UNO's been around for how many years?
Roughly about 2 decades.
Okay. Juan Rangel, okay. Juan Rangel is a major figure. People would know him in Chicago politics, but he's also been a major figure in UNO. He's been the CEO of UNO, right?
Right.
He still is the CEO?
He is.
And he was on the board. Was he chairman of the board?
I don't know if he was a chairman, but he was on the board of that, and there's another board for public school construction.
Okay, and people were impressed because they got a $100 million grant, $98 million. $98 million to go ahead and build a lot of charter schools. This isn't to operate the charter schools, this is just to build them, is that right?
Well, the money was to build the charter schools, right?
Okay.
But UNO does operate them.
So UNO's been doing a lot in the charter school area, and some would say they've been doing a lot of good things because they're saying that charter schools outperform traditional public schools. But like many in Chicago politics, they set up organizations. One way in which you see that things get done, you don't get a $98 million grant just by, writing a nice essay and saying, I'm a good guy, give us some money. That doesn't happen to anybody, does it, right?
No, it doesn't.
What you do to get something going in Chicago, it's the Chicago way. You get to know people who are significant in the political process. They make decisions about this. This grant came from the state of Illinois?
It's from the state.
And that would be Pat Quinn, who's the governor. That would be Speaker Mike Madigan, who's the Speaker of the House. And that would be Senate President John Cullerton, who's the Senate President. All those folks, by the way, it's a coincidence, happen to be Democrats, right?
Right.
Cullerton, Madigan, Quinn, Democrats. They don't always agree, but they're all Democrats. Okay? Sometimes they have to get things run through the Illinois Supreme Court. The majority there is Democrat too, right?
I believe so, yeah.
The majority of the people in the state of Illinois are Democrat, right?
It's a one-party state.
It's a one-party state. So, what did Juan do wrong? Did he do anything that Rahm Emanuel hasn't done? Did he do anything that Mayor Daley hasn't done? Did he do anything that anybody trying to influence public policy and have a significant impact? Did he do anything these guys haven't done?
I don't think it's clear what exactly Rahm Emanuel has done. There was a lot of talk, and again, Common Cause wasn't around a few years ago in Illinois, about Daley's contracts and the kinds of people that were getting contracts. It actually seems like Rahm Emanuel might have cleaned it up a bit. That's my understanding.
Rahm came in to clean up what Mayor Daley was doing? Because Rahm was responsible in '89, basically, for electing Mayor Daley, right? He raised most of the money. You don't think he just called people up and say, I got this guy, and he's really good. He's honest. He won't do anything wrong. Could you give him $5,000, $10,000, $15,000, $25,000? We don't want any, just give us the money, and we're sure you don't want anything for it. Do you think Rahm said that?
Of course not.
What would he say? I'll be the donor, and you be Rahm. What do you think he said in 1989 when he was trying to elect Mayor Richard M. Daley?
He said, so how, what are you going to do for us? That's the typical.
Because you're going to want something from us, right?
Absolutely.
How do we call that?
It's quid pro quo.
What's the word though? That 7-letter word. What's that word?
What
kind of way? What kind of way is that?
The Chicago way.
The Chicago way. There you go. See?
Yeah.
That's the show, folks. No, but so that's what these folks do.
Right.
I mean, with Senate President Cullerton, if he wants to get the Senate Democratic, if he wants to turn it even more so as he has, the Senate majority now for the Democratic Party is 40-19, right?
I think so, yeah.
It's almost like the Republican Party. It's a shadow of its former self. And what is it in the House?
They're more of a nuisance is what the people call them in Springfield.
Yeah, 71-47 in the State House. My point is, and Speaker Madigan has been Speaker now for 30 some odd years. He took, as they say, a coffee break in 95, 96 for the 2 years. And he stays Speaker because he keeps electing Democrats, and they still want him to be the Speaker. And he can elect Democrats because he gets money from various entities around Illinois, and he gives the money to the politicians, and they get elected, and they do what these people want, and that's the...
It's the Chicago way, but it's not only the Chicago way.
See, my guest here has a certain je ne sais quoi. You understand je ne sais quoi?
Oui, je parle français couramment, moi.
See? He has a certain je ne sais quoi, and he's picking up on, I love to say je ne sais quoi, and he likes to say? He likes to say?
What, je ne sais quoi?
The Chicago way?
The Chicago way, yeah.
So what you've been writing about...
Not sure if this is a language test, Jeff, or something else.
No, it's the Chicago way. So you and the Sun-Times have been writing about the Chicago way. Let's get serious. What's Juan really done?
What he's done is he's knowingly allowed contracts to happen in conflict with the law. There's non-disclosure. He hasn't disclosed. He hasn't asked people to disclose, and he sort of
what's the conflict? What's the problem here?
Well, the conflict is you're supposed to have open bids, and you're supposed to have when an organization, especially a not-for-profit organization.
Not completely, because they don't. In Chicago, they don't give things out to the lowest bidder, do they?
No, they don't.
Okay.
Right.
They have some bids, but it doesn't go to the lowest bidder. There's a lot of finagling. Right. They pick a few good people, and then they work it out.
The specific problem.
Because they work it out because it's the
Chicago way. Yes, I get it.
There are few words you're gonna hear a lot in this show. Je ne sais quoi. We both have a certain je ne sais quoi. My guest more so because he speaks French. I don't. Then you're going to hear the Chicago way. Okay, so you're telling us about the Chicago way. How is it working with you, Uno?
So with Uno, the specific problem that we've been talking about is that Juan was on the board and was a director and was in a position to know where these contracts were going, and he knew they were going to a board member and a friend. And also
who was the board member?
Descoto is his last name.
And he was on the board?
Miguel Descoto.
Miguel Descoto.
Yeah.
What's the history of Miguel Descoto? Tell us a little bit about him.
Yeah, I'm not...
Does he have a certain je ne sais quoi?
He has a certain
Even though he's Hispanic, he's
that
je ne
is,
sais quoi.
yeah, yo no sé qué.
What is his...
We say yo no sé qué.
Yo no sé, which means?
Je ne sais quoi, which means Chicago way.
What Miguel Descoto, what is his je ne sais quoi?
So Miguel Descoto, and there's a few other people around wondering how it really come out of what used to be the Hispanic Democratic Organization. There's a circle.
HDO.
Yeah.
Some
HDO.
would call it the Hispanic Daily Organization, right?
Yeah, others have called it the Latino Submachine.
They work closely with Daily.
Others have called it the Latino Submachine. The machine's always worked in the way that it works.
Others have called it the what?
The Latino Submachine.
Submachine, because they come at you like a submachine gun?
No, because it's actually what
it's
holds
the
up the machine.
It's the foundation for the machine.
Yeah, and it's always been like that. It used to be the African Americans that were the submachine. Now it's the Latinos.
Okay. And so they hold the Latinos, help hold up the machine. Blacks also help hold up the machine.
To some extent, but it's really Latinos have made it.
They're driving it, okay? They're driving
Population's different now.
Okay, but why are they so important? Since it's such a democratic state, in the state house and the state senate and governor's election, how is it the Hispanics have, why do these white guys, why do these Anglos, why do they need the Hispanics?
Well, they need them because, first of all, a large part of the wards on the south side of the city that go strongly machine are either all black or all Latino, and a lot of the wards are becoming more and more Latino. If you saw the last census, African Americans were leaving Chicago, whereas Latinos were exploding.
So like Mel, who's like not Hispanic, didn't they call him something gringo, right?
Something like that,
because he had a lot of influence in the Hispanic community, and he needed the Hispanics, right?
Yeah, Ed Burke is a good example of it. He has a mostly Latino ward now.
Yeah.
Right.
So these gringos learned to speak the language of politics in Chicago, which is green.
Right.
Not brown, not black, not white, it's green.
Absolutely,
right?
It's a universal language.
Right.
Yeah.
But so Burke does this kind of stuff, and he's chairman of the finance committee, and he's not going to jail, and he doesn't have to give up that. Speaker Madigan does it. His firm does a lot of real estate tax appeals. Mm-hmm. People go there and they get lower assessments, don't they?
Sure.
And they do that. It's just sort of magic. Because Speaker Mike Madigan, he's not like a math wizard, right?
No, but he's good at covering his tracks.
But he knows how to get reductions for people, and he knows how to do it legally. Let's be fair. Mm-hmm. Nobody's putting Speaker Mike Madigan in jail, right? Nobody's putting Alderman Burke in jail. They know how to do this legally. Is Juan, I always want to say Juan Rengel. This is not. It's Juan Ren Hall.
Hell.
Juan
Like
Rangel.
hell.
Like Juan Rangel. Okay.
There you go.
Juan Rangel. Is he just not covering his tracks? Is that the problem?
I don't know if it's just that, but I don't think I think
He's not doing anything. In consequence, he's not doing anything much different, you would agree, than Daley did, than Burke does, than Madigan does, than Cullerton does, than Quinn does. He's not doing.
Well, that actually remains to be seen. There's a twist that Juan Rangel has that the others don't have.
What's the twist?
The twist is that he runs a charity. His organization is a charitable organization, so you have a different sort of set of circumstances.
UNO's a charitable organization,
right? And they have for-profit arms.
Is it like a 501 something?
It's a 501c3, and it has for-profit arms.
Which is an issue advocacy organization.
Exactly.
Okay, and it's tax exempt, right?
It's tax exempt. It also has for-profit arms like UNO Janitorial, for example, that are LLC organizations that feed money into the members of the LLC. So those
is that janitorial organization part of the UNO organization?
Yeah, it's held by UNO Holdings.
But it's allowed to make money?
It's allowed to make money for profit, and the members, which are not required to be disclosed to the state, make money off of it.
And you think something there might be going wrong?
Certainly possible. I can't say.
You're not ready to make that allegation.
Not ready to make that allegation, but I'll go with the Tribune and say everyone should look at everything.
But the point you caught him on was that he has friends, relatives that were receiving contracts, and the board that he was on was making those decisions. And as a result of these disclosures, he's gotten off the board, right?
He's gotten off the board.
He's withdrawn from the board.
But he's still the executive director of the organization.
And you and Sylvia Puente wrote an op-ed for the Sun-Times, which the Sun-Times essentially supported, that said that not enough for him to get off the board, he should give up his position as CEO. Right? And he's also gotten rid of, would he say he's gotten rid of the conflicts that existed? Or how did he change things other than?
Well, what he did is he had Martin Cabrera become the president, somebody who's actually had business with UNO in the past, and
he had him become president
of the UNO board.
Of the UNO. So he's on the board now.
He's a president of the board now.
He's
the chairman of the board. Chairman of the board.
And his name is Martin
Cabrera.
Cabrera. Okay. And what's wrong with him?
So Martin, I'm not saying anything's wrong with him specifically, but he's also somebody who's had business with UNO in the past.
But that's not a disqualifier.
That's not a disqualifier, I think.
But if he has business with them currently, he'd have to disclose that.
Absolutely.
And he might have to recuse himself. Right. He might even ultimately have to get off the board.
So there's nothing
illegal. But you don't have any evidence that he has business or his entities have business currently.
No, but again, you have two issues. You have one is actual illegal activity, and also in this particular circumstance where they're supposed to be cleaning everything up, you ought to be careful also about the imperative.
But the Sun-Times hasn't come out at the editorial board and said anything about.
No, they haven't said anything about that. But I think at the very least it's interesting.
But nobody else has. You haven't said there's anything wrong.
No, we have not.
You just said it's interesting.
It's interesting.
All right. So what else has Juan done to make things better, that you might agree make things better, even though you still don't want him on the as CEO?
So actually,
has he done anything else to remove these conflicts?
He stepped off the Public School Commission board, which is that in and of itself is an issue because of the way it's structured. It just screams for conflicts.
What does the Public School Commission board do?
It's the construction commission, so they oversee these building projects.
They oversee them in the sense.
And oftentimes, it's people who benefit from those projects that are on that commission. So that's
what do they have? What power do they have?
They help sort of make decisions about distribution of money.
Who gets these contracts to do the construction?
Right. In fact,
the commission makes the decisions along with UNO?
Yes, but not with UNO, like in concert. Technically, they make the decisions, but you have
who actually makes the decision to hire people to construct the schools that UNO has the grant, the $98 million?
It's the city of Chicago.
City of Chicago.
But they make recommendations.
Who's they?
The Public School
Commission makes recommendations to the city of Chicago.
Ultimately, the city has to approve it.
UNO actually doesn't do this, doesn't really control it. They got $98 million to build these schools, but you're saying the city of Chicago and the Public School Commission make the decisions about who's actually.
Well, there's two different things. There's one is the state grant that we're talking about,
and then
there's the $60 million a year they get from Chicago Public Schools, and that's
to operate the schools.
And that's where that's implicated. The Public
School Commission. Okay, they deal with the operation of the schools. And the CPS deals with
and they also deal with the construction, but
UNO,
in the city.
UNO controls, you're saying, the actual construction. UNO controls who's going to actually be paid to put up the schools. Is that right?
And they have
that's a question mark. Is that right?
Right. They have made a change in that area, though.
They have made a change.
They have made a change.
And what was that change?
So the changes that they're outsourcing this now to the IFF, which is the Illinois Facilities Fund. IFF is a not-for-profit that works particularly in charter schools, and they help run things.
And they're going to make the decisions now?
Some of many of the decisions, particularly the operational decisions about where money is put into which schools and how it's done, is now through the IFF.
And the entities that'll do it, or is that somebody else?
It's going to be the same entities, but Bonner
No, but
no longer.
Those entities have already been chosen to put up the schools for the $98 million.
Right.
That's done.
That's done.
Okay. And now we're talking basically about finishing up the construction on these schools and the operation.
And the governor just announced that he's releasing another $6.2 million, so he's satisfied with the changes.
So he's satisfied to go ahead and complete this charter school. Was it a charter school or a group of charter schools?
The particular one that's at question right now is a charter soccer academy.
How many schools have been constructed of the $98 million grant that they received? So
most of them.
How many?
And I don't know the exact number.
Would you be talking 10, 15, 20, 25?
I think it's between 10 and 20. I don't remember the exact number, but most of it's all completed.
Most of it's done.
Yeah.
Okay. So Juan's not going to do that. And now if he has schools in the future that he's going to be involved with, he's got a set of he's got people like you watching him. He's got the Sun-Times watching them. He's got all sorts of eyes on him. It's probably he's not going to do something here that's not above board, right? I mean, we're not talking Rod Blagojevich, who went with everybody watching and did all this stuff, even though he knew the U.S. Attorney was watching.
Yeah. So
Juan's a reasonably smart guy.
Yeah.
Right.
He's a very smart guy.
So you don't think he's going to do something with everybody watching? Huh?
You know,
I'm not saying he would anyway.
You know,
but
I can't
certainly.
say that. You know, there's problems. You know.
Okay.
I never would have said Jesse Jackson Jr. would have did what he did when everybody was watching, and he did.
See your point. Even having done this, as far as you're concerned, Juan has to step down.
I think Juan should step down, and particularly because
and Sylvia Puente says Juan should step down.
Yeah,
you folks said Juan should step down.
Yeah, and there's others for other reasons
besides. And the Sun-Times
says
that Juan should step down too?
As well.
But the Chicago Tribune says no. Enough? They've said, look, these charter schools are important. This guy is important to run this organization. This organization's running a lot of charter schools. Let's let it be.
That's actually not what the Tribune said.
What did they say?
The Tribune said, we're not going to call for his resignation because we acknowledge that there's an important role to be played in the charter schools. However,
it sounds like what I just said.
No, but
they
said the most of the article actually says, but they better not be lying about other things, and they better be upfront about this. And they named a whole set of other areas where.
But the reason why they're giving him the benefit of the doubt now is they don't want to interrupt the construction of charter schools, because they think that's important for the education of who?
Of primarily Latino low-income students.
Right, and they think that's important. And why do they think that's important?
Because Latinos don't perform well.
No. It's not Latinos that don't perform well. It's the Chicago public schools.
Well, the Chicago public schools, but
the Chicago
Latinos also don't perform well nationally.
Well, they don't perform. They're the ones who are being judged.
Yeah, you've got.
But the Chicago public schools, who are supposed to teach these kids well, and we had Chicago public school reform start in 1995. 18 years later, 1 out of every 5 black kids in the 4th grade reads at grade level. We think it's a bit higher. It might be 1.5 out of every 5 Hispanics read at grade level. Not much better. Nobody's talking about that. Oh, the Sun-Times said they are. If you ask Mr. McAmey, I don't think you'll find much of that. I don't even think you'll find much from the Tribune. I don't even think you'll find your organization, Common Cause, talking about it, to be fair. Ray, to be fair, I don't think Rey Lopez Calderon is talking about that.
I have talked about it. But
show me the op-ed. Is there an op-ed that you've written about that?
Absolutely not.
Okay. No,
and we don't pretend to be education experts.
The only person, to be fair, I'm trying to be modest here, I talk about it. I'm just wondering, am I the only person? Now, if you want to challenge that statistic, if your name is Barbara Bird Bennett, or your name is Becky Carroll, the communications person, they're probably paid collectively $500,000 a year. If you want to challenge that, why don't you just come on Public Affairs? Barbara Bird Bennett, we've invited you.
Yeah.
Becky Carroll, we've invited you. I don't think anybody challenges that. That sounds like it's the right statistic. And yet you're running around, Juan, get off. And all I'm saying is maybe it's best for these kids. Complete the charter schools, keep an eye on him, make sure there's nothing that goes wrong. I don't want any corruption, you don't want any corruption. These kids should make sure all of that money is used effectively to educate them. But, there are some comparisons of charter schools with traditional public schools. What do they show us?
Well, the latest data does just show some better performance of charter schools now nationally.
Nationally, and in the Chicago public schools, what does it show?
Well, in particular, it does show some gains, although UNO's track record is mixed.
Well, what do you mean? Are you going to tell me?
They've got some schools that are performing well and some that are performing at the worst levels.
Okay, and when you take the average of all of the UNO schools in the last 2 years, let's get very current. Last 2 years, are you telling me that all of the UNO schools for the last 2 years, on average, if we average the data, don't outperform traditional public schools? And when you compare open enrollment, which is what charter schools are, to open enrollment traditional public schools in Chicago, what's the comparison show?
I imagine that they're probably doing better, but I'd have to see the data too.
Well, maybe you
and
should.
Come back and we can talk about specific data.
We give you a specific invitation. You come back and do that, because this show wasn't set up to do that. I'm going to be fair, but we just set this show up to be fair a few days ago. You and I just met in a sense a few days ago, right?
Right.
And it's been a great experience since, and you're kind to come on the show in a few days.
I appreciate the invitation.
And you're going to come back. But I will tell you, I've contacted the folks at the Illinois network of charter schools, which obviously has an interest in promoting it. They've sent me some data. They sent the data that's showing that the Noble schools group outperform the traditional public schools. You've agreed that that's the case.
Sure.
And I've said to now, it's an open standing invitation to Alderman Bob Fioretti, who's on the news almost every other day now. You think he's running for mayor? He said he wasn't. But maybe he is. Maybe just
you never know in Chicago.
So he told me, he said, well, Jeff, he doesn't see any evidence that traditional public schools are being outperformed by charter schools. Now, I give you Alderman Bob Fioretti, I give you my example, the Noble schools, charter schools. You agree, I agree, they're outperforming. And Mr. Fioretti, what examples do you give me? You say Peyton, you say Jones. Those are select enrollment schools, right? Unfair, Alderman Fioretti. Come on back and give me some open enrollment schools that do better or as well as the charter schools. Until then, Berkowitz 1, Fioretti 0.
I'll give you a couple though.
You will give me name of open enrollment.
I can give you the name of the specific schools, but I can tell you the Academy for Urban School Leadership schools do much better.
Okay, well, we don't have their names and we don't have
but
the data.
I can bring you that data.
For the last 2 years,
the Chicago CPS
for the last 2 years that they're doing better, okay, not than they were before. These are schools who were closed because they were doing so poorly.
Some schools were closed down. Majority are closed schools that they reopened under AUSL banner. Which
After
is very
closing them.
They're non-charters though, they're contract schools, very different animals.
Well, okay, but they're almost not traditional public schools because they're being run in very different conditions by AUSL, right?
Absolutely.
You can't give me any example.
I helped found
I'm talking
AUSL.
about the Karen Lewis schools. I'm talking about all that crap that she gives me about how well they do and, just let us teach.
Yeah.
I'm talking about the Karen Lewis who we think earns $300,000 a year, but some people say it's $275,000 because all her talk about transparency, has anybody seen Karen Lewis say, here's my contract, here's what I make from the union? Have you seen that?
I have not,
Should
but
she
I
do
imagine
that? You're for transparency.
But I can tell you
You're
most
for
union
transparency.
leaders in the city make around that much
No, but
money.
you're for transparency.
Absolutely.
Don't you think you should call for Karen Lewis to disclose her contract, put it up on the website?
If we had a problem with CPS right now, sure.
No, she's with the Chicago Teachers Union. That's not the CPS.
Yeah, but look.
No, but why? Why do some people get breaks from you? Why? If you go after Juan, why not Karen?
So Karen hasn't. First of all, Karen hasn't been sloppy. Like you brought up Blagojevich earlier.
She hasn't been sloppy. How do I know? I don't know. Have you looked at her contract?
Not yet.
Have you looked at her expense accounts?
Not yet.
Of course not. You don't.
Not yet.
Well, you just said she hasn't been sloppy. How do you know?
Because there hasn't been an investigation by any of the major papers there.
Okay.
So I can't tell you exactly what her
Sun
contracts are,
Times
or somebody
says-
comes up with something.
Until the Sun Times comes up with an investigation, we can't say.
And there may be a time where we do look at this at the teachers union. It certainly wouldn't be the first time that we go after different type of organizations. In fact, this is the first time we've ever said anything about, I think, charter schools. I mean, we're not making a position on charter schools. Yeah,
we're making news here because the Common Cause mission is to do what?
To hold power accountable and to engage grassroots citizens in their government.
And I'm saying to you before the show, we've talked about this. Common Cause should be out there holding CPS's feet to the fire Do you know the budget of the CPS? Approximately.
I don't know the budget of CPS. No,
$6 billion.
Yeah, it's
$6 billion,
Right.
400,000 students.
Right.
That's 15,000 per kid per year. Do you think somebody should hold them accountable for that $6 billion expenditure?
Absolutely. And just,
Shouldn't it be you, Common Cause?
And
If not
absolutely.
you, who?
Yeah.
If not now, when?
Sure, absolutely. And
I mean, you have a certain
I want to be clear. I want to be
you have
Jeff.
a certain je ne sais quoi.
So Jeff,
You
let
have
me.
a certain je ne sais quoi, right?
Great. Yeah. Sure.
Okay.
I'll take that.
There you go.
But Jeff, to be honest, Common Cause has been relaunched in the last year and a half, and we've been focusing on a whole set of different things like voting rights,
Right.
campaign finance.
Right.
This is an issue that came up. It was personally interesting to me because I have worked in the Latino community for over 20 years. The thing you're talking about, education of Latinos, you're not educating me in any kind of way. About
You've
that.
been doing community
Yeah.
organizing
I also helped create
for a long
I
time.
also helped create the Academy for Urban School Leadership, and I recruited the
AUSL.
first class. Yeah.
And you told me that before the show, and I
right.
give you a lot of credit for that.
So I just want to say something clear. This is the first time we say anything related to education at all, and we're responding to a specific corruption problem or conflict problem. That's what we're responding to right now. Does that mean that now we have to divert all our resources to go after the Chicago Teachers Union? I think that would be irrational.
Not all.
It's like, and I
How
said
about
this
a
to you
little bit?
earlier.
How
I said
about
this to you.
10%? How about 20%?
I said this to you earlier. If we found and I'll say this as a Catholic, if we found a Catholic priest was molesting a child and it was a scandal and people were calling for that priest to be kicked out of the church, is the answer to the people calling for him to get kicked out, say, well, why aren't you talking about the Lutherans? That doesn't make sense. It's a bad analogy. I understand where you're coming from.
No.
I understand where you're coming from, but it's not a good
That is
analogy.
completely sophomoric. That's beneath the University of Chicago background.
Oh,
that you
no.
have.
It's a perfectly similar, logical form.
Well, number one, I've given you examples of basically known areas of corruption, if not corruption.
Well, you brought one up.
I've given you many examples of known areas of influence peddling that's legal, okay? But nevertheless, the impact is negative, and that's nevertheless on public policy. And I've given you those examples and said, maybe you should weigh some of the positive consequences of the UNA organization against the negative. And I never said you shouldn't go after the corruption. I just said maybe you should do it in a way that doesn't impair the positive consequences. Right. So to the extent that Chicago Tribune agreed with me, they may have given other reasons, but to the extent they agreed and said, this may, if you dump Juan at this point, it may, Juan Rangel, if you dump him now, it may have negative consequences on public policy. Maybe you should think about that.
It's a valid concern.
Just like, you at Common Cause go after the American Legislative Exchange Council. Many people say, if you look at the website, they try to restrain lower spending, lower taxes. They talk about prison overcrowding. Maybe you're going after the wrong organization there. They go talk about ballot integrity. Maybe
they also talk about SB 1070 in Arizona.
Hold on. That maybe that's not the common cause. Maybe to go after ALEC. Maybe they do some good things, and maybe you should get aware of that. Maybe you're right to do something bad. I don't know. But I think that's the kind of discussion we should have, not the example you gave of the Catholic priest. We're going to continue to speak as the credits roll. We only have a few minutes left. I very much want to thank our guest, Rey Lopez Calderon. He is the Executive Director of Common Cause. You can find more about Common Cause by going to commoncause.org. The Illinois website is under construction.
Right.
Eventually, you can go to commoncause.org/IL. Give me in a minute. What have we missed so far?
I think we've missed the heart of the debate here. Is like, what is